The headlights barely cut through the blizzard. Jack gripped the steering wheel tighter, leaning forward like those extra 2 inches would help him see the road better. It wouldn't. The snow was coming down so hard, it looked like static on an old television. White noise made physical, erasing the world beyond the windshield. New Year's Eve. And here he was, driving home through the worst storm of the winter with his 8-year-old son in the back seat because his shift at Morrison's auto shop had run late. Again, there was always something, one more car, one more customer who needed their vehicle ready for the holiday. One more reason why Jack couldn't leave on time and get home before the weather turned dangerous. Tommy pressed his face against the window, his breath fogging the glass. He drew a smiley face in the condensation with one finger, then wiped it away. Good kid, never complained, even when Dad dragged him to the shop after school because there was no one else to watch him. Even when dinner was drive-thru burgers eaten in the truck because they didn't get home until 8. Even when Christmas had been modest this year. Really modest, just a few presents under their small artificial tree. Because the rent had gone up and the truck needed new tires and there was never quite enough money left over. 2 years. It had been 2 years since Sarah died. 2 years of Jack figuring out how to be both parents to a boy who deserved so much better than a dad who was always tired, always working, always one unexpected expense away from falling behind. Sarah would have known what to do. Sarah always knew what to do. She'd managed their small apartment like it was a palace, made Tommy's packed lunches look like something from a cooking show, remembered to schedule dentist appointments and parent-teacher conferences, and all the 1,000 little things that kept a child's life running smoothly. Jack did his best. His best felt like barely keeping their heads above water. "Dad," Tommy said from the back seat. "Do you see that?" Jack glanced at the rearview mirror. "See what, buddy?" "There's something in the ditch. Something white." "Probably just snow, Tommy. There's a lot of it." "No, it's Dad. I think it's a person." Jack's foot eased off the gas. The truck slowed, tires crunching through the accumulating snow on the road. He squinted through the passenger window, trying to see what Tommy was talking about. There, maybe 30 feet ahead, on the right side of the road, something pale against the dark trees and white snow. A shape that didn't belong. "Stay in the truck," Jack said, pulling over as far as he dared. The shoulder wasn't clearly marked anymore, everything covered in white, and the last thing he needed was to slide into the ditch himself. He put the truck in park and turned on the hazards. The orange lights reflected off the falling snow, creating a strange strobe effect. "Dad, be careful." "I will." "Lock the doors behind me." Jack pushed the door open against the wind. The cold hit him like a fist, stealing his breath. The temperature had to be in the single digits, and with the wind chill, he didn't want to think about the wind chill. He pulled his coat tighter and made his way toward the shape Tommy had seen, his boots sinking into snow that was already 6 inches deep and climbing. As he got closer, his heart started pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with the cold. It was a person, a woman, and she was slumped in a wheelchair, her head lolled to one side, wearing what looked like a wedding dress. The dress was soaked through, clinging to her, once white but now gray with slush and dirt. Her arms hung limply at her sides, her lips were blue. She wasn't moving. "Oh God." Jack broke into a run, slipping in the snow, catching himself. "Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me?" He reached her and touched her shoulder. Her skin was ice cold, even through the wet fabric. Her eyes fluttered. Barely conscious. Hypothermic. Dying, if she'd been out here much longer. The wheelchair was stuck, its wheels frozen into the icy buildup on the side of the road. Jack looked around wildly, trying to understand what he was seeing. A woman in a wedding dress in a wheelchair in the middle of a blizzard on a rural highway. How? Why? Where had she come from? "Left me," the woman mumbled, her voice so faint Jack almost missed it over the wind. "Church. Couldn't do it." "Stay with me," Jack said. He grabbed the wheelchair and pulled. It didn't budge. The ice had it locked in place like cement. He pulled harder, putting his weight into it, and something cracked. The chair broke free suddenly, and Jack stumbled backward, nearly losing his grip. The woman's head lolled forward. He didn't have time to figure out the story. He had to get her warm. The truck was running, heat on full blast. He could what? Take her to a hospital? The nearest hospital was 40 minutes away on a good day, and these roads were barely passable. In this storm, trying to make that drive could kill all 3 of them, but leaving her here would definitely kill her. Tommy had unlocked the door and was staring out at them, his face pale and scared. "Dad, help me," Jack said. We're bringing her to the truck. He lifted the woman out of the wheelchair. She weighed almost nothing, her body limp and unresponsive. Her head fell against his chest, and he could feel how cold she was, how her shivering had slowed to something irregular and weak. That was bad. He knew enough about hypothermia to know that when the shivering stopped, you were in serious trouble. Tommy jumped out and grabbed the wheelchair, his small hands struggling with the weight of it. He managed to fold it partway and drag it through the snow. Good boy, strong boy. Jack carried the woman to the truck and carefully maneuvered her into the passenger seat. Her head fell back against the headrest. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The diamond on her left hand caught the light from the hazards. Massive, expensive, the kind of ring Jack couldn't have afforded in 10 years of saving. Tommy climbed back in the rear seat, breathing hard, snow in his hair. Is she gonna be okay? I don't know, buddy. Jack cranked the heat up as high as it would go and put the truck in drive. His hands were shaking, not from cold, from the weight of what he'd just taken on, a stranger's life, a woman who might die in his passenger seat while his son watched from the back. Where are we going? Tommy asked. Home. We have to get her warm first, then I'll call an ambulance. The roads are too dangerous right now. We'll get her stable, and then we'll get her help. It was a decision made from necessity, but Jack's mind raced with all the ways it could go wrong. What if she died before they got home? What if she had internal injuries? What if someone came looking for her and thought Jack had done something wrong? But what was the alternative? Leave her to freeze? Risk all their lives trying to reach a hospital through a blizzard? He drove carefully, slower than usual, his eyes flicking between the barely visible road and the woman beside him. Her shivering was getting worse again, which he decided to take as a good sign. Her body was trying to warm itself. That meant she was still fighting. The woman's eyes opened to slits. Where? She whispered. You're safe, Jack said. You're in my truck. We found you on the side of the road. What's your name? Claire. Her voice was so quiet he barely heard it. So cold. I know. We're going to get you warm. What happened? Why were you out there? Left me. Couldn't sign. Drove away. Her words were fragmented, confused, but Jack caught enough to piece together something horrifying. Someone had left her there. Deliberately. In a wedding dress. In this weather. Who left you? Where's the church? But Claire's eyes had closed again. Her breathing evened out into something that looked like sleep but might have been unconsciousness. Jack pressed harder on the gas as much as he dared. 20 minutes that felt like hours. The snow kept falling. The truck's wipers worked overtime, scraping ice off the windshield in rhythmic beats. Tommy sat quietly in the back, and when Jack looked in the mirror, he saw his son staring at the woman with wide, worried eyes. Finally, their apartment building appeared through the white curtain of snow. Jack had never been so relieved to see the shabby three-story structure with its peeling paint and flickering parking lot lights. He pulled into his spot and turned off the engine. Tommy, grab the wheelchair. I'll carry her. They made their way inside, Jack carrying Claire while Tommy struggled with the chair behind him. Mrs. Chen from 2B opened her door a crack, saw them, and quickly shut it again. No help there. Fine. Jack didn't need help. He just needed to get Claire warm and stable. Their apartment was on the second floor. Jack kicked the door open. He never locked it when he was just running out for a minute, even though he probably should, and carried Claire straight to the couch. Tommy rushed ahead and pulled off the cushions, then grabbed the throw blankets from the back. Get the big blanket from my bed too, Jack said. And fill the kettle. We need hot tea. Tommy ran. Good kid. Didn't ask questions, just helped. Jack looked down at Claire on his couch, her wet wedding dress soaking into the upholstery, her skin still too pale, her breathing still too shallow. The diamond ring on her finger probably cost more than everything in this apartment combined. Who was she, and who would leave someone like this to die? He grabbed a towel from the bathroom and gently tried to dry her hair, her face, her arms. The dress was ruined, soaked through, but he couldn't exactly take it off her. That felt like crossing a line. Instead, he piled blankets on top of her, layers and layers, trying to trap what little body heat she had left. Tommy came back with Jack's comforter and the whistling kettle. Jack made tea, cheap black tea from the store brand box. Nothing fancy, and carefully helped Claire sit up enough to take small sips. She coughed, sputtered, but swallowed some. Her eyes opened again, more focused this time. Where am I? Her voice was hoarse. My apartment. I'm Jack. This is my son Tommy. We found you on the side of Highway 12, by the old Morrison Creek Bridge. You were in a wheelchair in the snow. Claire looked around the small living room. the worn furniture, the toys in the corner, the photos of Sarah on the wall, and something in her expression crumbled. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, what did I do? What happened?" Jack asked gently. "Who left you there?" Tears started sliding down Claire's face, cutting tracks through the smudged makeup still on her cheeks. "My fiancé, ex-fiancé Marcus. We were supposed to get married today. There was a church, a small one out in the country because that's what I wanted, something intimate. But right before the ceremony, he gave me papers to sign, a prenuptial agreement. I knew we'd discussed one, but this wasn't what we'd talked about. This gave him control of everything, my assets, my medical decisions, my care. Everything." She took another shaky sip of tea. "I told him I wouldn't sign, that I needed my lawyer to look at it first. He got angry, said if I didn't trust him, then maybe we shouldn't get married at all. I said maybe we shouldn't, and he just left, got in his car and drove away. The church was in the middle of nowhere, no cell service. My chair got stuck trying to get to the road, and then the storm hit and I couldn't get free." Jack felt rage building in his chest. What kind of man left a woman in a wheelchair in the middle of nowhere, during a blizzard, on what was supposed to be their wedding day? Tommy had been standing quietly by the couch, listening. Now he stepped forward and touched Claire's hand. "I'm glad we found you," he said simply. "You can stay here until you feel better. We have cookies." Claire looked at this 8-year-old boy offering her cookies in his small, humble apartment, and she started crying harder. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you both. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped." Jack sat down on the coffee table facing her. "You don't have to thank us. Anyone would have stopped." But Claire shook her head. "No, not anyone. You risked driving in that storm. You brought me to your home. You're taking care of me. That's not anyone. That's something special." Tommy held out the package of store-brand chocolate chip cookies. Claire took one with shaking hands and bit into it. "It's perfect," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. Jack watched her eat the cookie. This stranger in a destroyed wedding dress sitting on his second-hand couch, and he felt something shift in the universe. Like this moment mattered. Like finding her wasn't random chance, but something else. Something meant to happen. If you're feeling this story, if these words are reminding you what real kindness looks like, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens next will show you that sometimes the people with the least to give have the biggest hearts. "Do you have family?" Jack asked. "Someone we should call?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. "My parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. Same one that put me in this chair. I have staff, assistants, but not really family. Not anyone like this." She looked around the apartment again, and Jack saw what she was seeing. Photos of a happy family that used to be 3, now reduced to 2. A father and son making it work in a space too small for everything they'd lost. Tommy's drawings taped to the refrigerator. 2 pairs of work boots by the door, one big and one small, both worn through at the toes. A life built from love and struggle and determination. "Your wife?" Claire asked, nodding at the photos. "She passed 2 years ago. Cancer. It's just me and Tommy now." "I'm sorry," Claire said, and the empathy in her voice was real. "I know what it's like to lose people." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside Jack's small apartment, it was warm and quiet and safe. Tommy brought Claire another blanket and his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "She can hold Rex if she wants," he told his father seriously. "Rex always makes me feel better." Claire clutched the worn stuffed dinosaur and smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Tommy. Rex is wonderful." Jack made more tea. He checked Claire's fingers and toes for frostbite. They were cold, but the color was coming back, which was good. He asked if she was in pain. She said no, just tired. So tired. "You can sleep," Jack said. "You're safe here. We'll figure out the rest in the morning." Claire's eyes were already closing. "I don't understand," she murmured. "Why are you being so kind to me? You don't know me." Jack thought about Sarah, about the woman who'd taught him that kindness wasn't something you gave because you expected something back. It was just what you did when someone needed help. Because someday you might need help too, and you'd want someone to stop. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. Claire smiled, a real smile this time, soft and genuine. "Your wife raised a good son, and she married a good man." Then she was asleep, exhausted and safe, the destroyed wedding dress drying slowly on Jack's couch. Jack covered her with one more blanket and turned off all but one lamp. Tommy was yawning, fighting to stay awake. "Come on, buddy. Bedtime." Tommy let himself be led to their shared bedroom. They couldn't afford a two-bedroom, so they divided the single bedroom with a curtain and made it work. As Jack tucked his son in, Tommy grabbed his hand. "Dad? I think we were supposed to find her." Jack looked at his son's serious face, this old soul in a child's body. "Maybe we were," he agreed. "Do you think she'll be okay?" "I think she will be. Thanks to you spotting her." Tommy smiled sleepily. "Mom would have wanted us to stop." "Yeah," Jack said, his throat tight. "Yeah, she would have." He kissed Tommy's forehead and turned off the light. Then he went back to the living room and sat in the armchair, watching Claire sleep. Her breathing was steady now, her color better. She'd be okay. They'd gotten her warm in time. Jack looked at this stranger in his home, this woman in a wedding dress who'd been left to die, and he wondered about the story behind her, about who she really was, about the man who'd abandoned her and the life she was returning to once the storm passed. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the world in fresh white. Inside, Jack sat in his small apartment with his sleeping son in one room and a rescued stranger in another, and he felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years: purpose. Like maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The last thought he had before exhaustion pulled him under was that tomorrow was New Year's Day. A new year. New beginnings. And Claire, sleeping peacefully on his couch, was somehow the start of something he didn't understand yet, but felt in his bones was important. The morning light came cold and gray through the apartment windows. Jack woke in the armchair, his neck stiff, his back aching from sleeping upright. For a moment he was disoriented, then he remembered. The blizzard. The woman in the wheelchair. Claire. She was still asleep on the couch, buried under the pile of blankets. Her breathing was steady and deep, normal. Jack felt relief wash through him. She'd made it through the night. The wedding dress had dried into something stiff and wrinkled, streaked with dirt and salt stains. Her dark hair was tangled around her face. But her skin had color again. She was alive. Jack stood carefully, trying not to wake her, and made his way to the kitchen. 6:30 in the morning on New Year's Day. Tommy would sleep another hour at least. Jack started coffee in the old machine that sputtered and hissed like it might die any day now. While it brewed, he opened the fridge and took stock. Eggs, bread, some butter, orange juice that was probably a day past its prime, but still good enough. He could make breakfast, nothing fancy, but something warm and real. He was cracking eggs into a bowl when he heard movement from the living room. A soft gasp, the rustle of blankets. Then silence. He waited, giving her a moment to remember where she was. Claire appeared in the kitchen doorway, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her makeup was smeared down her cheeks in dark streaks. She looked at Jack, then at the small kitchen with its chipped counters and mismatched dishes, and her face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. You must think I'm completely insane." Jack turned off the stove and pulled out a chair from their small dining table. "Sit, please. You're not insane. You almost froze to death. You're allowed to be a mess." Claire sat slowly, moving carefully like everything hurt. She probably had bruises forming from being stuck in that wheelchair, from the cold, from everything. Jack poured her coffee in one of their better mugs, not that any of them were particularly nice, and set it in front of her. "How do you take it?" "Just black is fine." Claire wrapped her hands around the mug like it was a lifeline. "The heat. I don't think I'll ever take warmth for granted again." Jack went back to the eggs, scrambling them in the pan with practiced efficiency. Toast popped up. He buttered it, divided everything onto 2 plates, and set one in front of Claire. She stared at it like he'd given her a 5-star meal. "When's the last time you ate?" Jack asked. "Yesterday morning." Before everything. She picked up the fork with shaking hands and took a bite, her eyes closed. "Oh my God, it's just eggs. No one's made me breakfast in 3 years. Not like this. Not sitting at a table with someone who's actually here." Jack sat down across from her with his own plate. "What do you mean?" Claire took another bite, chewing slowly like she was savoring something precious. "I have staff, a chef, people who prepare meals and leave them in warming trays. But nobody sits with me, nobody makes me toast and asks how I like my coffee. It's all very efficient and very lonely." She looked up at him, and Jack saw something raw in her expression. "I haven't told you who I am, what I am. You're going to find out eventually, so I should just say it. My full name is Claire Whitmore, as in Whitmore Technologies. My parents founded the company. When they died, I inherited everything." The fork stopped halfway to Jack's mouth. Whitmore Technologies. He knew that name. Everyone knew that name. They made semiconductors, computer components, something technical that Jack didn't fully understand, but that powered half the electronics in the world. The company was worth billions, billions. And she'd been sleeping on his couch. "Oh," Jack said quietly. "I understand if you want me to leave. If this is too weird or complicated, or why would I want you to leave?" Claire laughed, but it was bitter. "Because that's what people do. The moment they find out, everything changes. They either treat me like I'm made of glass and money, or they start calculating what they can get from me. Nobody just treats me like Claire anymore." Jack took a bite of his eggs. They were getting cold. "I don't know how to treat billionaires. I only know how to treat people. And you're a person who needed help last night. That hasn't changed just because I know your last name." Claire's eyes filled with tears. She looked away quickly, wiping at them with the back of her hand. "Sorry, I'm sorry. I keep crying. I don't usually cry this much. You almost died yesterday, and your fiancé abandoned you. You're allowed to cry. Ex-fiancé. And he didn't abandon me because he's cruel. Well, maybe he is cruel, but he abandoned me because I wouldn't give him access to my money. The prenup he wanted me to sign. It wasn't about protecting assets in case of divorce. It was about giving him control while we were married. Medical decisions, financial decisions, everything. He wanted me to make him my power of attorney." Jack felt that rage from last night returning. Why would he think you'd agree to that? "Because I'm in a wheelchair. Because I need help with things. Because people assume that means I can't make my own choices." She set down her fork. Marcus was good at first. He seemed like he saw past all of it, the chair, the money. He was patient, attentive. "I thought I'd finally found someone who wanted me for me." But the prenup revealed what he really wanted: control, access, a billionaire wife he could manage like an asset. "How long were you together?" "A year and a half, long enough that I should have seen it coming. But I was lonely. I am lonely. Do you know what it's like to have a house with 20 rooms and staff to take care of everything and no one to just sit with you and eat toast?" Jack thought about his cramped apartment with its thin walls and secondhand furniture. "Yeah, actually, different reasons, but yeah, I know lonely." They ate in silence for a moment. From the bedroom, Jack heard Tommy starting to stir. Soon his son would stumble out, rumpled and sleepy, probably ask for cereal and cartoons, normal morning routine. Except nothing about this morning was normal. Claire's phone had been buzzing periodically from where Jack had plugged it in to charge overnight. Now it rang outright, the sound jarring in the quiet kitchen. Claire glanced at it and her face went pale. "I should get that. It's probably my assistant. She'll be worried." She wheeled herself over to where the phone sat on the counter Jack had brought her chair inside last night, cleaned the ice and snow off it and answered. Her voice changed immediately, became more controlled, more professional. "Melissa." "Yes, I'm fine." "No, I'm not at the church. I'm safe. Someone help me." She listened for a moment, her expression growing more strained. "No, I don't need you to send security. I said I'm safe. Just give me a few hours. I'll call you when I'm ready to come home." She hung up and turned back to Jack. "They want to send cars, lawyers. My head of security is probably losing his mind. I've been missing for 12 hours. You should let them know where you are. I don't want anyone thinking I kidnapped you." Claire smiled slightly. "I told Melissa I'm with someone who helped me. She's already probably running background checks on everyone within 50 miles of that church. She's very thorough." Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. He saw Claire and his face lit up. "You're awake. Are you feeling better? Do you want to see my Lego castle? I've been building it for 3 months, and it's almost done." Claire's whole demeanor softened. "I would love to see your Lego castle." Tommy grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the corner of the living room, where his toys were arranged in organized chaos. Jack watched them go, this billionaire heiress in a destroyed wedding dress, and his 8-year-old son, and something warm expanded in his chest. He cleaned up breakfast, listening to Tommy's enthusiastic explanation of every tower and drawbridge. Claire asked questions, genuine questions, laughing at Tommy's stories about the Lego Knights and their adventures. She didn't talk down to him, didn't humor him, just listened like his words mattered. "Dad," Tommy called. "Claire says she knows how to play Galactic Warriors. Can we play together?" Jack came into the living room. "You sure? You're probably tired." "I'd love to," Claire said. "If it's okay, I haven't played video games in forever. My physical therapist says they're good for hand-eye coordination, so they played." Jack made more coffee and watched his son teach a billionaire how to use the controller for their ancient gaming console. Claire died immediately, respawning in a burst of digital confetti, and Tommy laughed so hard he fell over. She died again. And again. By the fifth time, she was laughing too, real laughter that made her look years younger. "I'm terrible at this," she said. "You just need practice," Tommy assured her seriously. "It took me weeks to beat the first level." There was a knock at the door. Jack opened it to find a woman in an expensive suit, her hair pulled back severely, a tablet in her hands. Behind her stood two men in dark suits who were clearly security. "Mr. Harrison?" "I'm Melissa Chen, Ms. Whitmore's executive assistant. I apologize for the intrusion, but I needed to verify her safety personally." "She's fine," Jack said. "Come in." Melissa entered, her eyes scanning the apartment in seconds, probably cataloging every detail. She saw Claire on the floor with Tommy, controller in hand, and something in her expression softened. "Ms. Whitmore, we have the car ready. Your physician is standing by at the house. If you're ready, we can take you home." Claire looked at the apartment, at Tommy, at Jack. Then she turned back to Melissa. "Give me a few more minutes, please." Melissa nodded and stepped back outside with the security team. Claire set down the controller and wheeled over to Jack. "Can we talk? Just you and me?" They went out onto the small balcony, barely big enough for two people, and closed the door. The morning was cold but clear. The blizzard had passed, leaving everything covered in pristine white. "I want to do something for you," Claire said. "For Tommy. Please don't say no before you hear me out." Jack crossed his arms. "I don't need charity. It's not charity. Let me finish." She took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about my life, about how empty it is. I have all this money, all these resources, and what am I doing with them? Sitting alone in a big house, letting people like Marcus try to take advantage of me, hiding from the world. But last night, you and Tommy reminded me what actually matters. Claire, we just did what anyone would do, no. You did what good people do. And Tommy, he looked at me like I was just a person, not a Whitmore, not someone in a wheelchair, just Claire. Do you know how rare that is?" Jack didn't know what to say. "I want to set up a trust fund for Tommy's education. Full scholarship to any school he wants, college included. Before you refuse, think about it. Think about what that would mean for his future." "Absolutely not," Jack said immediately. "I appreciate the thought, but I won't let my son grow up thinking he didn't have to work for what he got. Money like that would ruin him." "I expected you'd say that. So here's my second offer. I need a head of maintenance for my estate. Someone honest, hardworking, who actually knows how to fix things, instead of just calling contractors for everything. The salary is $90,000 a year plus benefits. Full medical, dental, retirement matching. There's a cottage on the property. 3 bedrooms, furnished, included as part of compensation. You and Tommy would have real space. He could have his own room. There's a yard." Jack stared at her. "That's too much. It's market rate for estate management," I checked. "And the cottage has been empty for 2 years since my last maintenance director retired. I've been cycling through contractors who charge me twice what they should because they see the Whitmore name and add zeros. I need someone I can trust, someone who'll tell me the truth. That's worth $90,000 to me. I'm a mechanic. I fix cars, not mansions. You fix things. That's what I need. Someone who can fix a leaking pipe or a broken heating system or a stuck gate. And before you say you're not qualified, I called Morrison's auto shop this morning. Your boss said you're the best employee he's ever had. Detail-oriented, never cuts corners, completely reliable. Those are the qualities I need." Jack's mind was racing. $90,000. Benefits. A cottage with 3 bedrooms. Tommy could have his own room, his own yard. Better schools in whatever district Claire's estate was in. But it felt like charity dressed up as a job. It felt like he'd be taking advantage of her gratitude. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you really want to do this?" Claire met his eyes. "Because I'm lonely. Because I have 20 rooms, and they're all empty of anything that matters. Because when Tommy offered me his stuffed dinosaur last night, it was the kindest thing anyone's done for me in 3 years. Because you sat with me while I ate eggs and didn't ask me for a single thing. I want people like you and Tommy in my life. Even if I have to hire you to get that." The honesty of it hit Jack hard. She wasn't offering charity. She was offering connection. A transaction, yes, but one based on genuine need on both sides. "If I'm not doing the job right, you fire me," Jack said. No special treatment because we found you last night. I work for every dollar. Deal. And I pay rent on the cottage, market rate. The cottage is part of compensation. That's non-negotiable. But if it makes you feel better, you can be responsible for its maintenance. You break it, you fix it. Jack thought about Tommy in that cramped bedroom, about the secondhand clothes and the drive-through dinners and the constant worry about money. He thought about Sarah, who would have wanted better for their son, who would have told Jack that pride was fine, but not at the expense of Tommy's future. Okay, he said. I'll take the job. The relief on Claire's face was profound. She reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. They went back inside. Melissa was waiting patiently, though her expression suggested she had about 100 questions. Claire asked for a car to be sent for Jack and Tommy whenever they were ready, and for the cottage to be prepared immediately. You can move in as soon as you're ready, she told Jack. Take your time packing. There's no rush. Tommy had been listening from the couch, his eyes wide. Dad, we're moving? To a cottage? If you want to, buddy. With a yard? Tommy's voice was rising with excitement. In my own room? Your own room. Tommy launched himself at Jack, hugging him tight. Best New Year's ever. Claire watched them with tears in her eyes again. She turned to Melissa. Let's go home. I need to shower and burn this dress. As she wheeled toward the door, she stopped and looked back at Jack. Thank you for everything, for stopping, for taking me in, for giving me hope that there are still good people in the world. See you Monday, Jack asked, to start the job. See you Monday. She left with her entourage, and the apartment felt suddenly empty. Jack looked around at the place that had been home for 5 years, small, cramped. But it had been theirs, and now they were leaving it for something better. Not because of luck, not because of charity, because one snowy night, Tommy had spotted someone who needed help, and they'd stopped. 3 months later, Jack stood in the doorway of the cottage, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The estate was beautiful, all rolling hills and careful landscaping. But this little cottage tucked away near the tree line was perfect. 3 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a living room big enough for Tommy's Lego collection to spread out properly. A yard where his son played every evening, running and laughing like he'd been freed from a cage he didn't know he was in. Jack's work was good. Honest. He fixed things around the estate, managed contractors, kept everything running smoothly. Claire had been right. It was exactly the kind of work he was good at. And she'd kept her word, no special treatment. When he told her the conservatory heating system needed a full replacement instead of just a repair, she'd trusted his assessment without question. When he said the old groundskeeper was overcharging her, she'd addressed it. They had a good working relationship. But it was more than that now. Twice a week, Claire came to the cottage for dinner. At first it had been awkward, formal, like she was visiting employees. But Tommy had worn her down with his easy affection and endless stories. Now she showed up in comfortable clothes, helped set the table, laughed at Jack's cooking attempts. She taught Tommy chess. He taught her video games. They watched movies together. It felt like family. Jack tried not to think about the way his heart jumped when he saw her car coming up the drive. Tried not to notice how her smile lit up when Tommy ran to greet her. Tried not to remember that she was a billionaire, and he was her employee, and there were about 1,000 reasons why anything beyond friendship was impossible. But sometimes, when they were all sitting around the dinner table, and Tommy was talking a mile a minute about his day at his new school, Jack would catch Claire looking at him. And in those moments, he saw something in her eyes that made him wonder if maybe, possibly, she felt it too. Tonight was one of those nights. Claire had stayed late, helping Tommy with a school project about space. Now Tommy was asleep, and she was still here, sitting on the porch steps with Jack, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. I'm happy, she said quietly. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy. Good, you deserve to be. So do you. She turned to look at him. You've given me so much, Jack, you and Tommy both. A reason to wake up in the morning. People who see me as just Claire, a family, even if it's not traditional. Jack's heart was pounding. He wanted to tell her that it wasn't just gratitude he saw in her eyes, that he was falling for her despite every logical reason not to, that somewhere between fixing her broken gate and teaching her to make Tommy's favorite cookies, she'd become essential to his life. But he couldn't. Not yet. It was too soon. Too complicated. So instead he just said, "You're part of our family too." Claire smiled, and in the starlight she was beautiful. Thank you for stopping that night. Thank you for seeing someone who needed help instead of driving past. Tommy saw you first. Kid's got good instincts. He gets that from his dad. They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Inside the cottage, Tommy slept peacefully in his own room, safe and happy. And here on the porch, Jack sat with a woman who'd come into their lives like a miracle disguised as a disaster. And he felt the kind of contentment he hadn't felt since Sarah died. The future was uncertain. Whatever was growing between him and Claire would have to be navigated carefully, honestly. But sitting here now, under stars that had witnessed their strange story begin on a snowy road, Jack thought about fate. About how sometimes the worst night of someone's life led them exactly where they needed to be. Tommy had been right that first night. They were supposed to find her, and she was supposed to find them too. Sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones with power or money. They're the ones with open hearts and room at their table. And sometimes, when you save someone else, you end up saving yourself too.